Hello, today we're going to be looking at a product called IDERA SQL Comparison Toolset. This toolset includes two underlying features. One of them is called the IDERA SQL Schema Comparison Toolset, and the other one is called the IDERA SQL Data Comparison Toolset. And they're both bundled into the same product offering, which we call the IDERA SQL Comparison Toolset. And we're looking at the SQL Schema Comparison Tool right this moment. We'll get into looking at some of the functionality here in just a moment. These two products can be very valuable to your organization when it comes to keeping databases in synchronization. And you may ask, well, why would I need to keep databases in sync? Well, there could be a variety of reasons. Maybe we have changes that are happening on a test environment that need to be published to a production environment. Perhaps there is data records that exist in a production database that need to be synchronized over to a reporting database. Maybe there is a situation where we have a payroll environment that is, where our payroll department is making changes and updating information in a database that does not need to be live until the date of payroll, where it needs to be posted. And we use a synchronization process to sync from that one database to the next. There are all kinds of different reasons. You might even take a backup archive and bring it online to restore objects, instead of having to restore an entire database. So all kinds of different options available through synchronization, or different benefits through synchronization. So what we're looking at right now is the IDERA SQL Comparison Toolset. This tool is very easy to use, and for that matter, both of the tool sets as part of the higher level SQL comparison tool set are very easy to install. It takes about 5 minutes to get them up and running. And so we're starting off with the SQL Schema Comparison Toolset. Both of the products have about a 5-step operation from beginning to end for using them. So within Schema Comparison Toolset, the first thing we'll do is add a workspace, and you can see in order what you have to do here on the left-hand side. First, create a workspace. A workspace is basically just your little area that you're going to be performing different projects and working on different projects. And so I have a couple of projects in my environment. Once you've created a workspace, you'll add databases, and actually part of the creation of your workspace is to add the databases. It's very simple to do. We just simply select the add databases. You can hit the drop down list here to see all the SQL instances in your environment that are available. Pick on any of them and refresh the database list, and pick and choose whatever databases are relevant to your roles or responsibilities. Like I said, I've already added my instances and databases into my workspace, and you can see them here on the left hand side. The couple of databases I'm going to be working with today are my compared databases, SQL Compare DB1 on the left and SQL Compare DB2, where I have some explicit differences between both databases. And I've added them into my database analysis and synchronization project called Finance DB Comparison. Now notice that these different database projects are color-coded differently. That is, one of the features of the product, where we can more easily identify certain projects relevant to different organizational units or different activities relevant to our daily responsibilities. In this case, I've color-coded it with green and yellow to represent, I guess money, or, looking at finance information. So to edit the color schemes, you can hit the little pencil icon. This is where you can change the color schemes. You can even use gradient colors if you want to get all fancy with it. I've given the session name for this database analysis and synchronization project the name Finance DB Comparison. And there's also the option to put in different descriptive information. So when I click on that database project, it brings up all of the different schema objects, all the structural components that make up the database. I've collapsed my table objects in this case, so you can see different object types. And if I expand, then you can see all the underlying objects in each of those different categories. This is the table objects, and so obviously we see all the different tables. And then you can go down the list here and look for what's alike or what's not alike. I find it's easier to just do my sorting by the status here at the top. Click on the status, and it will bring all of my tables that are not alike, or views, or store procedures from one database to the next. It'll show what's alike, what's not alike, what exists on one side that does not exist on the other. You'll have all of that information. When we look at the differences at the bottom, we'll see highlighted what is actually different from one side to the next. But if it gets a little bit busy here with some of the T-SQL, you can also right-click and toggle lines where you only show the differences. So there's some of that type of capability to really focus on what it is that you need to see. Also, expanding any one of these objects will show us the underlying objects and what is different from one side to the next per object. Okay, so now what we've done here is we've analyzed all of these different tables, views, stored procedures, functions. We see that what's different permissions. Now we go through and select what it is we want to synchronize from one database to the next. And to be clear, at the top you can see the database 1, SQL compare DB1, and on the right is SQL compare DB2 to know which way we're synchronizing. So to do the synchronization, over here on the right hand side we have different menu options. One of them is the comparison options as well, where you can go in and kind of nitpick what it is that you want it to do as part of its comparison. But at some point I want to synchronize the changes from one side to the next. And so what I'm going to do is select the generate script for moving from SQL compare DB1 database over to SQL compare DB2. When I click on that, it brings up the synchronization script in the window. And if I want to take it a step further, I could go ahead and on the right hand side open this up in Management Studio, and it'll bring up Management Studio and load this script in for me. You can also go ahead and save the script out, or better yet, here on the right hand side we have the option to execute the script, which will actually make the changes for us directly. There is also a command line capability that goes along with the SQL Schema Comparison Toolset as well as the Data Comparison Toolset, so that you can set up different types of automation to automatically analyze two databases and automatically synchronize the changes from one database to the next, so you don't have to do this on your own on a manual and regular basis. So as you can see, that's about a 5-step process. It's very simple to use this tool. The other product is called SQL Data Comparison Toolset. So we'll bring that up at this point. So now we're switching over to the Data Comparison Toolset. And as you can see, it's very similar in appearance to the Schema Comparison Toolset that we were working with. It has the same types of functionality, basically that same 5-step process from beginning to end, starting off with creating a workspace where we add databases that are going to be available to be compared as part of these database comparison projects. I've already added my databases, my instances and databases into my workspace, and they're listed here on the right hand or on the left hand side. And then I've created different projects for doing comparison and synchronization. And again, if you want to go in and select new databases and create your own project, select the compare databases and just pick from the list any databases to compare from one instance to the next. Choose your comparison options for what it is you want it to compare within the database with respect to data, and then it's going to perform its comparison after that. So what we see now is the different projects I've created for database comparisons. And I'm going to pick on my reporting server databases from one instance to the next, because I know there's going to be a bunch of changes over there. As you can see, again, the color status has helped me to identify what projects are relative to different responsibilities I have, or different organizational units or departments. Whatever you want the color status to mean. So let's go ahead and click on Report DB Differences. This brings up all of the different tables where the data records are going to be stored that we can perform a comparison against. It is important that we have indexes to be able to link. Indexes, primary keys, to link the data from one table to the next table, from one instance in database to the next instance in database. This is, by the way, this database report server is on my 2014 instance. The other report server database is on my local IDERA prod VM instance, represented here at the top. You can choose the comparison options here on the right hand side, and there are the different options again to compare and synchronize views, memory tables, columns, stored tables, different scripting options where we can have it build out multiple scripts and basically bite off the synchronization operation in chunks that can be executed in multiple steps as opposed to having one lengthy operation. All right, so let's go ahead and do a data comparison. Up here at the top right, we select Compare Data, and it's going to step through all of those tables. And I can kind of scroll to the right here to see what the number of equal rows are, what's on the left-hand side that's not on the right-hand side, or what's on the right-hand side that's not on the left-hand side, the number of overall different rows. I'll click on the right row header here to bring kind of all the changes up to the top. And then at the bottom, you'll be able to see a little arrow pointing to the right or pointing to the left. I clicked explicitly the right row, so it's showing me here that for this object, this first object, that these are all the objects that exist on the right-hand side database on my local instance, but do not exist on the left-hand side. And then if there's anything that does match up, we'll be able to see, as far as the objects, the data objects within the tables, what links together and what's different from one side to the other with the actual data records, the data record difference between one side and the other. And you can move to the right to see highlighted anything that was different. And it's also going to change, it'll show you the color status here, what's on the left-hand side versus what's on the right-hand side. Again, the color status is up here at the top. The orange on the left, the blue on the right. So at this point, we can take the differences from one database and synchronize them to the other. First thing we'll do is go through and select anything that we, or deselect anything that we do not want to synchronize. You can be very selective. You can select all of it if you want to. And so once you pick the tables that you want to synchronize the data from one side to the next, then on the right-hand side, we can generate the script. And I'm going to, from my standpoint, I'm just going to point the synchronization from the left-hand side to the right, and we'll go ahead and generate the script. Just like within Schema Comparison Toolset, we have the T-SQL that pops up here that we can review if we need to see all of the operations that are going to take place to actually move that data difference from one side to the next, in my case from left to right. On the right hand side, you have some different options available to save the script out, to execute the script, view script options. Again, this is what we saw earlier through the options screen, or open the script in Management Studio if you want, or just simply execute the script to push that change out at this point. Like I said, both tools very easy to use, about a 5-step operation. They both come with command line operations, so you can have it as part of your own automation, have it go ahead and analyze and synchronize differences on an ongoing basis without manual intervention. There's also an option through the command line capability to take snapshots of these databases so that you can do future comparisons of databases the way they stood at a point in time. So with that, that wraps up the demonstration of the IDERA SQL Comparison Toolset. Hopefully it's been useful. If there are any questions that come up as you start using it, feel free to get in touch with your account manager. I've tried to give you just a high-level summary view of the features and functionality, but we can also dive in a little bit more in depth if we need to. So I appreciate you watching the video. Thank you.